Good morning, I'm Bree Driscoll, and here's your Spectrum News in 90. We're just one day away from the first presidential debate between two American presidents, and time is running out for President Biden and former President Trump to finalize their strategies. The stakes are high with Election Day less than 5 months away, and the candidates have agreed to debate only twice. The Supreme Court is set to hand down several major decisions in the coming days. Today through Friday, the nation's highest court will issue opinions. Some of the cases we're waiting to hear back on include decisions on the limits of presidential immunity and whether an obstruction charge against January 6 rioters will stand. In Russia, wrongfully detained Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich is in court today as a trial gets underway. Russian authorities claim Gershkovich was gathering secret information for the U.S. Gershkovich, the Journal, and the U.S. government deny the allegations. Flood concerns continue today in the Midwest. Yesterday, raging floodwaters causing a levee failure on the Sioux River, prompting the evacuation of several communities and closing roads. In Sioux City, homes along the river saw water levels reach 45 feet. This after days of catastrophic flooding and severe storms, which also caused a partial failure of a dam in Minnesota. Those are your headlines. Now here's a look at your weather on the ones.
We're seeing hot temperatures once again across the central portion of the U.S. as well as the southeast, the mid-Atlantic as well, with temperatures near 100 degrees, heat index values over 105, and that's why there are some heat advisories that extend through Texas, Oklahoma, excessive heat warnings for Oklahoma as well, and we will see that heat continuing as we go through the next couple of days. The severe outlook looks like we could see some strong storms in the northeast as well as the mid-south and the central plains.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Spectrum News. I'm Bree Driscoll. Today is Wednesday, June 26th. Our top story, we're just one day away from the first presidential debate between two American presidents. And time is running out for President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump to finalize their strategies. Our national reporter Angie Gonzalez joins us now. Angie, are there any indications about whether or not people will be tuning in to watch?
Might be too late for us, Bree, but nearly 6 in 10 Americans say that they are extremely or very likely to watch, read, or listen to commentary about the debate. And that's according to a new poll from the Associated Press, which found that while both men remain broadly unpopular, both Biden and Trump supporters view this debate as a major test of their own candidate or simply a spectacle that they don't want to miss. Now, Bree, we know from the 2020 debate between these two men that things can get heated, but there are questions on whether or not some of the changes and regulations that we're going to see this debate, whether or not those changes are going to cause a change in the atmosphere. Are we going to see something less contentious than we've seen in the past? We'll have to see. Bree.
Certainly have to see about that. And Angie, as Trump and Biden continue to prepare for tomorrow night, there's some speculation Trump might announce his choice for vice president in the coming days. What do we know about that?
Well, I think we know from past experience, we're not quite sure what the former president is going to do, but Bree, multiple dates have been tossed around for when Trump might announce his VP. Just a few days ago, the belief, at least in our newsroom, was that he was going to announce his pick sometime next month possibly at the RNC convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Now, a couple of names still being tossed around are Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, and Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. But NBC News is reporting that Trump's big reveal could happen as early as this week, and perhaps he won't even wait till then. After that report came out, a Trump campaign senior advisor seemed to confirm it, giving the same timeline. And Bree, Trump told reporters over the weekend that he's already made his decision, and that person is going to be in attendance on Thursday night in Atlanta at the debate. So we'll have to be looking at possibly who we see there supporting the president to find out who the VP pick might be. Back to you.
Scoping out the audience. All right, Angie Gonzalez, thank you very much. A reminder, you can watch the CNN presidential debate tomorrow night at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific on CNN or simulcast right here on Spectrum News. Our coverage will begin at 8:55 p.m. Eastern and 5:55 on the West Coast. Then stay tuned for our Decision 2024 live post-debate special as our team of political experts from across the country provide analysis and context immediately following the debate. It is decision day once again at the Supreme Court. The court is set to hand down several major decisions in the coming days. Today through Friday, the nation's highest court will issue opinions, and some of the cases we're awaiting include decisions over the limits of presidential immunity and whether January 6 protesters can be charged with obstruction. It's time now for our Political Buzz. Political Director Bob Hart joins us now. Bob, we had some really very interesting primary races. The results of them come in last night. Let's start with an upset for an incumbent here in New York. Tell me about that.
Jamal Bowman, a two-term congressman who represents parts of the Bronx and parts of Westchester, lost pretty decisively to Westchester County Executive George Latimer. And a lot of people are saying, you know, this could be sort of an indication of where things are nationally for the party. I'd really argue that it was basically almost two incumbents facing off against each other. And a lot of voters did know who George Latimer was. He is the county executive there.
A well-known name in the area, so both of them were recognizable going into the race. Switching gears, another congressional primary gaining a lot of interest. Somewhat controversial Representative Lauren Boebert, she won.
Lauren Boebert moved across the state in Colorado, knowing that she was in trouble in her home district. She moved from the mountains to the plains. It was a six-way Republican primary. She won very handily. She got about 45% of the vote. And really dispatched her five opponents pretty decisively.
And she also had the Trump endorsement. She wore the Trump sneakers at her victory party. That very much could have helped her as well in this.
Exactly. She had a base. She has a real base that loves her no matter where. She could move to another part of the country. She would get a certain percentage of the vote. She moved across the state. Her base stayed with her. And, you know, having five opponents helped her as well.
Let's talk about Trump announcing his running mate. There's some speculation that the announcement could come this week instead of at the Republican National Convention, which is where we had expected that announcement would come. Also this week, we have the debate, we have the Supreme Court's announcement. What would be the advantage of him announcing this week?
Well, the debate could be sort of like the surprise element, that if Trump feels that he didn't do well or isn't going to do well, suddenly he could have the Veep surprise, and that becomes the news. Let's say he doesn't do well on Thursday night. I could see him on Friday saying, I'm going to blow this story right out of the water. I'm going to tell everyone who my Veep pick is. If the debate just sort of goes normally, which is very something you don't really say in this election cycle, then I would say he would probably do it sometime before the convention. But I could easily see a surprise coming if he isn't happy with his debate performance, or maybe even a ruling from the Supreme Court.
And he's really built up this announcement. I mean, the suspense and all the drama surrounding it and kind of the competition of it all. He's really done a great job at kind of like, who will it be?
Donald Trump is a master showman. Listen, he hosted an award-winning reality show for a long time before then hosting his own reality show from the White House for 4 years. And I think he really knows how to handle events like this. And so don't be surprised if he does it big.
All right, Bob Hart, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Imprisoned Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich's trial taking place in Russia today, 15 months after he became the first Western journalist in post-Soviet Russia to be arrested on espionage charges. The trial was held behind closed doors. The 32-year-old briefly pictured in court this morning in a glass cage with his head clean shaven. Russian authorities claim Gershkovich was gathering secret information for U.S. intelligence while on a reporting trip for the Journal back in March of 2023. Gershkovich, the Journal, and the U.S. government deny those claims, the State Department declaring him as wrongfully detained. He is due back in court in August. Just ahead on Spectrum News, the latest details on WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's plea deal with federal prosecutors.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, we know how much you depend on the reliability of our products and services. Now, we've taken a new step forward in reliability by identifying potential service issues before they become a problem. If you're affected, we'll contact you and help schedule a free service appointment with one of our expert technicians. The proactive maintenance of our network is one of the many reasons Spectrum delivers the most reliable internet speeds in the nation. Spectrum, keeping you connected.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking? Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
To your weather on the ones on this Wednesday. The heat has been a big story this week. That's going to continue across much of the country. And then storms. We have had some storms that have produced quite a bit of rain, some flooding issues in the Midwest. Some of those storms moving into the Northeast, the Mid-South, as well as the Plains today. And then that rain in the Southwest still continuing. That's monsoonal moisture that they're dealing with in parts of Arizona as well as New Mexico. Now, looking at our temperatures today, definitely a lot of heat once again. 99 for DC as well as Raleigh, 98 in Atlanta, Dallas almost 100 degrees, and likely over 100 degrees in parts of Oklahoma today, getting up to 96 in Salt Lake City. A little bit of a cool down in Portland. Yesterday temperatures were much warmer, but today only in the 70s, but still a lot of heat showing up here. Along with the heat, we have humidity, especially in areas down in the Southern Plains, the Mid-South, and much of the Southeast. So heat index values, even if you're not in any of these shaded areas here for the heat alerts, I think will be around 100 degrees, if not above it, for a lot of the Southeast. So if you do plan to be out for extended periods of time, you want to try to take some breaks, maybe go inside where there's some AC, drinking plenty of water. And anything you can do to keep yourself cool, you want to keep that in mind for this week and really for the rest of the summer. Now, the heat is fueling some of these storms across the country. You can see across parts of the Plains, Mid-South, as well as the Northeast. Some areas a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. Already seeing some storms in parts of the Midwest, and those storms are dipping southward into the Mid-South, the Tennessee Valley. And as we time this out, going into the afternoon, looking at Eastern time, you can see around 3 p.m. some of those stronger storms starting to push through areas like Arkansas, getting into Mississippi, but also into parts of the Midwest and into the Northeast for tonight. So this does look like an overnight threat for the I-95 corridor with damaging wind gusts and maybe some hail.
Well, if you're just joining us or heading out the door, here's a look at what you need to know. We're just one day away from the first presidential debate between two American presidents, and time is running out for President Biden and former President Trump to finalize their strategies. The Supreme Court is set to hand down several major decisions in the coming days. Today through Friday, the nation's high court will issue opinions. And in Russia, wrongfully detained Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich is in court today as a trial gets underway. Russian authorities claim Gershkovich was gathering secret information for the U.S. Gershkovich, the Journal, and the U.S. government deny the allegations. And that's a look at what you need to know this morning. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is back in his home country of Australia this morning. He arrived there after pleading guilty earlier to a felony charge for publishing U.S. military secrets. Now, this is video of Assange leaving a federal court in the U.S. Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. The guilty plea is part of a deal with the Justice Department that secured Assange's freedom and concludes a drawn-out legal saga that raised questions about press freedom and national security. Assange smiled slightly as the district judge imposed the sentence, pronouncing him a free man. House Speaker Mike Johnson vowing to file a legal brief in support of former Trump advisor Steve Bannon's emergency appeal to the Supreme Court in his continued bid to avoid jail time. The move is part of a larger push by House Republicans to discredit the work of a bipartisan committee set up to investigate the January 6th Capitol riot. A jury found Bannon guilty of contempt after he refused to comply with a subpoena for an interview as part of the investigation back in 2022. Unless the high court steps in, Bannon is due to start his 4-month prison sentence next month. 2 Olympic champions take their fight against doping to Capitol Hill. Michael Phelps and Allison Schmidt pleaded with Congress to crack down with the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, less than a month away. Spectrum's Evan Kozlov is in Washington with the hearing highlights.
Belief in oneself is only made possible when they believe that the system is clean and fair.
Former Olympic swimmers Michael Phelps and Allison Schmidt know a little something about winning, bringing home a combined 38 Olympic medals. And on Tuesday night, the two were on Capitol Hill to testify in front of a House committee, arguing that more needs to be done to keep things fair for future competitors, urging Congress to pressure the World Anti-Doping Agency to better enforce its regulations.
This injustice not only undermines the fair play of Olympic Games, but also tarnishes the dreams and efforts of athletes worldwide.
The hearing comes amid a developing scandal after it was uncovered that 23 Chinese athletes tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug ahead of the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo. Nonetheless, they were allowed to compete by the World Anti-Doping Agency. Travis Tigert, the CEO of the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, has accused the WADA of covering up the positive tests.
Let me be very clear. Clean athletes in sport and the public need a strong WADA. No country is immune to the scourge of doping, including here in the U.S.
The Chinese Anti-Doping Agency has pushed back on the accusations, arguing that the 23 athletes had an extremely low concentration of the substance, claiming that they were inadvertently exposed to the drug, an explanation that was accepted by the WADA ahead of the 2021 Games.
As athletes, our faith can no longer be blindly placed in the World Anti-Doping Agency.
Now, the U.S. gives millions of dollars to the WADA, and some members of Congress are now threatening to withhold funding if the agency doesn't change its ways. The WADA says it's now launching an independent review of its handling of the tests. Reporting here in Washington, this is Evan Kozlov, Spectrum News.
Floodwaters causing a levee failure yesterday in the Sioux River, prompting the evacuation of several communities and closing roads. In Sioux City, Iowa, homes along the river saw water levels reach 45 feet and also destroyed a railroad bridge in Minnesota. Flooding caused a partial failure of a dam.
We have about 18 inches of rain over the last couple of weeks. What's happened is we've inundated the ground. There's nowhere for it to go. I think as we see these chaotic climate events due to climate change increase, we need to think about how we're building back more resilient.
At least 2 deaths have been blamed on the storms in Iowa and South Dakota. President Biden approving a major disaster declaration for several counties in Iowa to free up federal aid. The National Weather Service predicting more than 24 points of major flooding in southern Minnesota, eastern South Dakota, and northern Iowa. Flood warnings are expected to continue into the week. Up next on Spectrum News, the uplifting story of a bodybuilder who made a big change in their life and how he hopes to inspire others.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Thanks for joining us for your Weather on the Ones. We'll start off with our severe outlook across parts of the Northeast today. That includes D.C. and Philly, as well as New York City. Outside of that, a level 1 risk up toward Albany. And we will continue to see some showers and storms as we go through the rest of the afternoon and through the overnight. As we time this out, looking at 7 p.m. Eastern time, some strong storms pushing through Pennsylvania as well as getting into New York. So this does look like for some parts of the I-95 corridor that this could be an overnight threat. So this is around 11 p.m. You do want to have a way to get your alerts because we could have a few strong and severe storms, maybe a few warnings coming out of this with those strong wind gusts, and that'll continue to move through. This is around 3 a.m. tomorrow morning. Eventually we get things clearing out as we get into daybreak for tomorrow. Now looking at tomorrow, temperature-wise, still quite a bit of heat. Now you do notice that areas like DC, instead of being close to 100, will be closer to 90. So a little bit of a cool down there, but still going to be hot and humid. 94 for Raleigh, 90 in St. Louis, 100 degrees in Dallas. So you sort of see down in Oklahoma and Texas, that area of heat really shifting there. So that's going to continue as we go through the next few days and really into the end of the week. In terms of our severe outlook for tomorrow, that's going to be in the northern plains, and that starts to shift downward a little bit. A 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. So Rapid City, Wichita, everybody there seeing maybe some strong wind gusts with those storms and some hail as well. The tornado risk is low with these risks that you see over the next few days, but not zero. Still something to keep an eye out for. And then Friday, that area starts to shift to parts of the upper Midwest. So as we time this out, this is 7 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. You see those storms moving through the plains, kind of dissipating a bit as we get into the afternoon, but then regenerating and moving into parts of the Midwest as we go into Friday morning, and then by Friday afternoon, moving through the Great Lakes region. So we will be keeping an eye out for those strong and severe storms. And as we go through Friday, you can see those stormy chances. Kansas City, Chicago, Minneapolis, big temperature differences here in the 70s in the upper Midwest, and then in the 90s for Kansas City, still 100 degrees for Dallas. So still heat holding on across parts of the South. In terms of the tropics, we're watching a couple of areas. One that's further out in the Atlantic has a low chance of development, as well as another area that could potentially move into the Caribbean Sea.
President Joe Biden will pardon former LGBTQ+ service members who were convicted for, quote, simply being themselves. Biden says this aims to right the wrong of a military policy that banned gay sex. According to a senior administration official, thousands who were convicted are eligible for the pardon and can apply for a certificate to help them receive benefits. The pardon is expected to impact around 2,000 former service members. Biden officials pushing to remove age limits for transgender surgery. According to newly unsealed court documents, health officials in the Biden administration pressed an international group of medical experts to remove age limits for adolescent surgeries. Officials worried that age limits could fuel growing political opposition to such treatments. Email excerpts from members of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health recount how staff were urged to drop the proposed limits from the group's guidelines and apparently succeeded. This Pride Month, we're bringing you inspirational stories from the LGBTQ+ communities. Today, we're introducing you to a bodybuilder who is living his truth after making a change. Spectrum's Taylor Bruck has more.
Rep by rep and lift after lift, Kel Haynes has built the body of his dreams.
I chipped away at this body for years. I chipped away on that Stairmaster. I used these iron plates and we made it.
But just like many other fitness journeys, it didn't come easy, especially being a transgender man. Haynes came out in 2017 at 27 years old. For decades, he says he hated what he saw in the mirror.
I have this memory and I'm like, I hate this body. Never thought I was gonna be able to take my shirt off and feel proud. And to be able to do that and have that freedom is just so life-changing.
As he transitioned, he began bodybuilding. In 2021, winning his first competition, competing against other trans men.
Bodybuilding and focusing on my fitness and nutrition has literally let me sculpt the man I want to be. I feel great in my body, and I'm proud of it, finally.
4 years into the sport, he's now training for his first cisgendered competition in September.
It is a mainstream bodybuilding show, so I'll be competing with the wild world of men's bodybuilding.
Once a food microbiologist, Haynes now works full-time in fitness as a certified personal trainer.
Keep going.
Helping others, no matter their gender, build the body of their dreams all over the world.
Nice job.
One of his clients is his partner, Maddie Core.
Words can't even explain how proud I am. He makes such a big impact, I don't think he even really realizes it.
Haynes chooses to be visible about his journey in hopes that proximity breeds empathy.
It's really easy to hate behind a keyboard. It's really hard to hate up close. And I really want to be there to help change people's minds. I want to be the first trans person people know. If that's me, then cool, let's talk, man. Because I think there's more that binds us together, and then we have more in common than we have not in common.
Through helping people build their ideal body, he helps people build their ideal life.
What you can get through changing your body is that confidence that you can do what you want in this world. No one can hold you down.
Rep by rep and lift after lift, working to unite people through not just fitness, but love.
Personal training is just the best job in the world because you're really seeing people live their best life and really make their own dreams come true.
For Spectrum News, I'm Taylor Bruck.
Really raising the bar on inclusion. I'm Bree Driscoll. Thanks so much for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
The 2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill to the Oval Office, let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Strengthening democracy by informing your community. That's our mission. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual, and she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you and we'll figure it out.